Good morning, students. Our English lesson today is a literature lesson. It is a poem by Langston Hughes. For today's objective, students will analyze features of Langston Hughes' style, analyze the images in Hughes' poetry, and discuss the impact of figurative devices on the poem Harlem. The guideline for today's lesson, first of all, we have the starter, in which you need to answer a question. Then we will have an introduction about Harlem poetry and a brief poem analysis. Students, you have two main activities. Activity 1 is a table that you need to fill in, and activity 2, which is the core activity, the expert groups activity. These two activities are already posted on Google Classroom. And we have finally the plenary. To start with, this question needs to be answered by you guys. What are your dreams, and how would you feel if your dreams did not come true or deferred? Okay. Well done. A Dream Deferred, Harlem, is a poem by Langston Hughes. As you see, this is our poet, Langston Hughes. He belongs to the Afro-American people. He is one of the earliest innovators of the new literary art form called jazz poetry. Hughes is best known as a leader of the Harlem Renaissance. He famously wrote about the period that the Negro was in vogue or raged, which was later paraphrased as when Harlem was in vogue or rage. The word defer, to start with, let's explain what do we mean by the word defer. The word defer means put off or postpone. So Hughes wrote Harlem in 1951, and it addresses one of his most common themes, the limitations of the American dream for African Americans. The poem has 11 short lines in 4 stanzas, and all but one line are questions. If we had a look to our poem, we can see that it has 6 rhetorical questions. And from the first look, we can identify that it has 5 similes, like, 3, 4, 5, and 1 metaphor. So according to Langston Hughes, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrup sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? As you can see, our poet has a main question, what happens to a dream deferred, and then answer it with other 5 questions. Is it like a raisin? Is it like a sore? Is it like a rotten meat, a syrupy sweet, or like a heavy load? Or maybe it explode. But it explode like what? This is a question that you need to think about. Now, you are requested to fill in this table. And when you're done, we can continue. After you turn in the activity, let's have a look to the model answer. This is a model answer that you can follow. So the dream is like raisin, like sour, rotten meat, syrupy sweet, and heavy load. And if you have a look to the image or feeling created, all of these similes has negative connotation. It's dead, it's withered and shriveled, disgusting, dirty, crusty, loathsome. But we have one comparison, which is, does it explode? So a dream deferred is like either a bomb or fireworks. So in this metaphor could have 2 different connotations. It could be negative or it could be positive. So it either explode like a bomb, and we have here the feeling of premonitions, or the image of premonition, or it can be like fireworks when people celebrate, and this also shows the appealing future. For now, you are requested also to go to your expert groups activity, which is posted on Google Classroom. We have for group A, students need to explain the main idea and the poem of this, the main idea of this poem and its message. You need also to explain the tone and the mood. For group B, students are requested to analyze the literary devices, all figures of speech or rhetorical questions, not only similes and metaphor. If there is any other literary device, please add it. For group C, students need to answer these two questions in a paragraph. How is the idea of the dream differed related to issues of color and racism in the context of America? And the poem Harlem is full of questions. Is it significant that they have no answers? So let's have a look for a model or for a wrap-up of our lesson after you turned in your activities. So we need to know that the speaker in this poem is an African American. He is upset because of the current social condition. His main message is calling for his equality, social equality, his dreams, and he's saying that these dreams cannot be delayed without consequences, and he also explaining the effects of racism on people. So the main message that dreams cannot be delayed indefinitely without consequences. The tone is aggrieved and depressed, disappointed. The mood is indignant and frustrated. For the figures of speech, to wrap up again, we have 6 rhetorical questions. We have 5 similes, like a raisin, like a sword, like a rotten meat, like a syrup sweet, or like a heavy load. We have one metaphor, which is explode, which we explained before could be a bomb, which has negative connotation, or could be a fireworks, exploding fireworks, which have also positive connotation. There are other figures of speech here. We have like dream deferred is an alliteration, does dry is an alliteration, syrupy sweet also alliteration. We have the end rhyme in sun and run. We have meat and sweet and rhyme, load and explode and rhyme. And we need to know that the whole poem is full of imagery. To wrap up also, we need to have a look for a sample answer for group C activities. We think that keeping the questions unanswered is largely significant in this poem because it implies that the future is yet to come and remains uncertain. When I keep a question unanswered, so it means that I'm uncertain about the future, I'm uncertain about the answer. And this also reflects a pessimistic view. A lacking of answers also alludes to a sense of doom. For at that period, white people refused to give the blacks right. It also breaks the rhyme to create a sense of delirium and emotional havoc. We need also to have to think that this poem, or to keep in mind that this poem is filled with irony. The dream is the dashed hopes of the black man. The poet is not speaking of the image of the actual raisin in the sun, but of the black man waiting and waiting, dreaming and hoping, until finally he stands up and bursts out from under the oppression of white society. And now we reached the end of our lesson. You need to think and write about 2 things you have learned from this poem. Also answer this question on Google Classroom. And thank you.